there! Thank you for watching this first video from my video series for social entrepreneurs, rebels, changemakers and activists. I'm making this video series for you to make sure that you get new insights and stay inspired to make a change in this world. In this first video, we will be speaking about how to unleash your creativity. And to tell you a little bit more about this, I will be having a conversation with David Chislett, who is a writer, a poet, a coach, and a trainer in creativity. That's it for now. On to David. Hi David, welcome and thanks for joining me today for this conversation. Let's skip all the boring stuff and tell me, what in your life do you spend most time on?
Undoubtedly work, but outside of that I spend a lot of time on my own creative projects. But I'm also a family man, so both of those things are getting squashed into less and less space.
And what type of creative projects are you currently working on?
My big focus at the moment is my poetry. I've started a Patreon page. If you don't know it, Patreon is a subscription-based crowdfunding platform. It's a bit like Netflix. You pay a certain amount of money every month, and then you get to see different levels of the content that I'm producing.
And as the topic of today is unleashing your creativity.
Yeah.
How would you describe creativity?
Well, notoriously, there is no one accepted definition of creativity. It's very hard. But if you want to reduce it to its essential components, creativity is the ability to join dots. So that can mean really boring, like 1 + 1 = 2. I mean, that's joining dots. Right up to the really unexpected, where people take facts or points of views from one sphere of life and randomly join them with another to create something which to other people appears to be so outrageously new, but all it is just a reconfiguration of how we see the world.
Oh, that's a really cool definition. I like it.
Cool.
Yeah. And then, do you think everyone is creative?
Absolutely. Because we can all join dots. I mean, on a certain level, creativity is connected to our ability to imagine things. You know, we can all imagine what the future is going to be like. We're doing a study, we're attending a concert, we can all think about how we will feel afterwards, what that will give us. And essentially, creativity is a lot like that. It's this ability to imagine something that doesn't already exist and then to act in a way that realizes it.
And then how come that some people don't feel really connected to their creative side?
Because of the way we're educated, without a shadow of a doubt, we have a massive cultural bias towards creativity, especially in the workplace. People who are creative are generally designated as being a little bit weird, and they're therefore locked up into very specific departments. And it's truly unfortunate because no one has ever met a child, a baby, who is not creative. And somewhere between that amazing ability of kids to have fantasy friends and to draw on the wall and to just turn anything into a game, very creative, just gets beaten out of us by the time we reach adulthood.
So if everyone is in essence creative, then how would you say we could connect more to our own creativity and make sure we make use of it more?
Well, like everything in life, if you have a priority and there's something you want to act on, you need to actually make time for it to happen. You can't expect it to just descend upon your head like fairy dust and you're going to wake up with inspiration tomorrow. You need to, in a very purposeful way, set aside time for creative actions. And you also need to understand that in order to be creative, you need to be in a very certain mindset. You know, when you're really busy and you're stressed and you're rushing around and there's a lot going on in your head, you're going to struggle to come up with new ideas. When you're a little bit quiet, when you're happy, when you've got the opportunity to be inward looking, and that you're not actually trying too hard, that's when you come up with ideas. So you need to really build time like that into your day. Mm-hmm. It's not a coincidence that many people report having their best ideas in the shower, walking the dog, going for a run, during their smoke break. What all of these places have in common is rest, happiness, and a lack of busyness in the brain.
Cool. So if we could summarize this, then there's 4 conditions, right? You just named.
Yeah.
And those are, can you repeat them?
Mental quiet. I mean, you can achieve that in the noisiest office in the world, but inside it's got to be pretty quiet. You've got to be inward looking. In other words, not thinking about what will others think, pressure. You've got to be slightly happy. You can't be stressed and anxious and angry or anything like that. And the last one is that you mustn't try too hard. Because when you try too hard, you think too much, and then your brain isn't quiet anymore, and that's possibly going to make you anxious, and the whole thing just goes out the window.
You're talking about slightly happy. Then how would you explain that these really famous people or artists like Andy Warhol or Jackson Pollock or Amy Winehouse, who I think weren't always happy, or maybe weren't happy at all?
Shut up and sit down.
Like, how would you explain their amazing creativity?
Well, I think we need to differentiate between someone's normal brain/emotional state and the one they're in when they're creating. I mean, we don't know how Amy Winehouse felt when she was writing the songs. We know how she felt at the time that she wrote About. So my contention is that we mustn't be misled by these myths of the tortured souls of the artists. I mean, a lot of these people were tortured souls, but were they while they were producing? We don't know that. And to be fair, they're unlikely to admit to that, because that would kind of ruin the whole image, right? It's a bit like rock and roll. There's all these myths around it, but the reality is actually much more mundane, much more everyday.
Yeah.
And it's important not to be misled by the PR.
And when I was participating in one of your workshops, I also remember you saying that you can actually create an environment which will most likely enhance your creativity. So what are the things in our environment we can actually affect?
There's a lot of things. I mean, first of all, you need to make sure, like I said, that you've got this time. You know, structure and routine are actually the friends of creativity, not the enemies. Because when you automate the mundane, you set that energy free to do the extraordinary. But that also means you need to have the opportunity to do the extraordinary. So in order to help with that, you need to be committed to ongoing learning and never getting to a point where you say, I know enough now, I'm an expert in my field, and that's it, I'm stopping. Characteristic of all highly creative people in any sphere is this continuous thirst for new information. you've also got to be pretty sure that you're not in an echo chamber, because creative thought is all about unexpected connections. And if everyone around you agrees with everything you say, you're just going to get more of the same. And that, whilst technically might be creative, it's not interesting. And therefore, the chance of making anything exciting happen with it is very, very limited. It's also really important to understand why you're doing stuff, because being creative is, no matter what the thing is that you're creating, has risks. You're going to fail a lot of the time. It's not going to be perfect, and you've got to be able to get up the next morning and try again. Which means you need to be connected very powerfully to your why. Why am I actually doing this? And a lot of people also struggle with this because they think about fame, they think about money, they think about outside approvals. Now, those are extrinsic motivators, which aren't really good when you're talking about your sense of purpose. Mm-hmm. It needs to be much more about what I want. I want to make more of myself. I want to be able to do these things. This makes me happy. Those may sound ridiculous, but they're actually much better motivators than money or fame. And the last thing that actually helps a lot is having people on your side who, quite frankly, just go out into the world and say, hey, this person's doing cool stuff, check them out. Can I help you, introduce you to people? Can I get you to do things? These are all factors which can be represented by people or just by attitudes, which will really help you to sustain being creative.
And do you have these people in your own life? So people who are a little bit critical on the one hand, but on the other hand, people who really support you and help you continue your work?
Yeah, I do. I haven't always, which I think explains the kind of roller coaster profile of a lot of my creative endeavors. The one thing that I've never had, which I don't really have still, is the last person, what Alan Gannett calls a prominent promoter. Someone who literally acts like a kind of manager who goes out into the world and says, come and do business or come and work with this person. I've played that role so often for other people that I think I'm a little bit control freakish about that, and I haven't really let anybody else in.
As we're making this video for social entrepreneurs and activists and people who would like to see a change in the world, what is a personal change you would like to see in the world, and how do you think creativity might help us to achieve that?
I am routinely alarmed at how one-dimensional people's thinking has become. Everything is binary, is polar, is black or white. If you're not for me, you're against me. Which doesn't reflect our experience of the world at all. And what it tells me is that people are uncomfortable with things that are ambiguous or things that are complex. Our world has become so uncertain, it's changing so fast, it seems so dangerous and threatening, that people are just uncomfortable with anything that isn't a yes or a no. That's why I'm doing creativity training, because the beauty of becoming more creatively activated is that you can then generate your own options, which gives you real choice. A yes, no, that's not real choice. It doesn't admit to individual preferences or differences. And creativity gives you that. It gives you the ability to say, well, actually, I don't agree with everything you say, but I like that, and I'm going to focus on that. If you think politically, someone like Donald Trump is actively working to eliminate grey. If you're not with Donald Trump, you must be the enemy. That's what all totalitarian states have done in the history of the world. It's dangerous, and yet all of us act like that at some stage. I do too. It's something to be very, very wary of. And I feel if more of us were more aware of the fact that there is grey in this world, and that by embracing the grey, actually you find more solutions, hopefully less of us would be prone to such extremism. My favorite quote on creativity comes from the economist John Maynard Keynes, and he said, "The difficulty lies not so much in coming up with new ideas, but letting go of the old ones."
So that was video 1 of the video series. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you got a lot of inspiration from the conversation I had with David on how to unleash your creativity. If you want to learn more about David or about his work, go check out his website. If you want to become one of his prominent promoters, visit his Patreon page. I really enjoyed making this first video, and I'm sure it wasn't perfect, but it sure as hell was fun. So I think I'm already gonna get started on video 2. Stay tuned!